Hello, my name is Alex, and I'm a ports interpreter here at beautiful Crystal Cove State Park, which is a California state park. And it's my job to share fun and interesting information about the plants and the animals, the natural resources that make this park such a wonderful place to explore. And California State Parks offers rich and engaging virtual programming through the PORTS program, Parks Online Resources for Teachers and Students. Visit ports-ca.us to learn more. Today we are blending art and science to learn about a very exciting ocean animal called a sea star. Sea stars live in an ocean habitat on the rocky shoreline called the Tidepools. At low tide, when the water pulls back, if you peek into these watery pools, there's a thriving community of organisms, all struggling to survive in a pretty harsh environment. With the sun beating down, the waves always crashing, the water temperature changing, the water levels going up and down, it's an ever-changing environment. So these animals need to use specialized adaptations to survive in their environment. Adaptations are inherited traits that plants and animals use to survive. Some sea stars can have 20 arms or more, but the ones that we have typically have 5 arms or rays. At the tip of each arm, they have an eye spot, but they don't see exactly how we do. They sense light, dark, gravity, things like that. If you've ever felt a sea star in an aquarium or a touch tank, they feel kind of bumpy like sandpaper, so they're related to other animals with spiny skin in the ocean like sea urchins. On the underside of a sea star's body, this is their mouth right here, and they only eat meat. So they're called carnivores. And then all along their arms, they're covered in thousands of feet called tube feet. Stomp your feet. So we use our feet to move around, and so do they, but their feet look a little bit different than ours. They stretch these spaghetti-like structures off of their arms with suction cups at the tips to grip onto the rocks when the waves are crashing. They also use their tube feet to find their favorite food. Do you know the favorite food of a sea star in the tide pools? Here's my clue. Urgh! What am I flexing? My muscles. Mussels are sea snails with 2 shells and a soft body inside. You can help protect tide pool animals like the sea star the next time you visit a marine protected area by always watching where you're stepping and staying on the dry rock. We never put our hands or our feet inside of the pools, and we never pick up the animals and move them outside of their pool. They get very disoriented when they don't know where their food, their shelter, and their space is. We also never collect shells from the beach because shells are homes or habitats for hermit crabs. And we never collect animals from the beach as well because otherwise they won't survive. They're taken out of their natural environment. So the next time you go to the tide pools and you're exploring, look for the stars of the rocks. They're rock stars, sea stars.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth McGhee, and today we're going to be drawing a sea star. So you'll need some paper, a pencil, some markers, watercolor, crayons, a brush, and a cup of water. So we'll start off first drawing the sea star. So wherever you want the center of the sea star to be, we're going to start with a circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we'll put a dot in the middle of the circle. So we're going to do some of the legs coming off it. So just a little wavy. We don't want them to be spokes on a wheel. And that'll be the top part of the star. We want to have your legs be about the same size, but again, doesn't have to be perfect. And this one, for this part of the star, it will continue. So it's almost like this is a full line going across. Now for the next one, this one will come off at a little angle, and maybe this one will do a slight curve, kind of gripping the rock. Now we're going to have to divide up this circle so that we can make sure that all of the triangles coming off the sea star are even. So in between each one of these legs where it meets the circle, We're just going to make a little mark at about halfway. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. Now from each one of these marks, we're going to take it to the point or the end of the leg. And we'll just continue all the way around the star. And the more uneven it is, the more natural it'll look like the sea star is gripping the rock. So now we got kind of the basic shape. Next what we're going to do is we're going to erase this circle because we don't need it anymore. In art, sometimes a line that we use in the beginning but erase later, that's called like a structure line or a structure shape. And what we're going to probably do too is with your eraser, just lighten this center line because we're going to be going over it with yellow crayon, and we don't want it to have a dark line underneath the yellow crayon. So I'm not making it go away entirely, I'm just lightening it so that it won't be as obvious. All right, with our yellow crayon, we're going to do this center part of the star. So it's going to be mostly straight lines. We're just going to kind of, it's almost like a little house shape in the center of that star. And for the pattern, kind of think of an eyeball shape. So it's kind of like this shape, but it's going to go all the way up and down. We'll just do that on each of the arms. You can add a lot or you can add a few. Every sea star is different. All right, and then we can also do that line that we gently erased earlier. And you're going to want to press pretty hard with the crayon. You can be gentle at first if it makes you feel more confident, but you'll want to really press it down hard because when we put the watercolor over it, you want to have this paper covered so that the wax will resist the watercolor. All right. Now that we have the crayon for the star laid in, we'll start to lay in the crayon for the plants that might be on the rocks behind it. So this is where we're going to scribble. Again, pressing hard, just be little random, little clumps. I'm going to do a little bit of pink. And the messier, the more natural it will look. Because nature is not always tidy. Maybe we'll do some light green. Scribble, scribble. And pressing hard. Maybe we'll do some slightly darker greens. And then maybe a little bit of purple too. These colors will really pop once we add the watercolor. I'll be a little careful over here by sea star. So you can use any brush for this next step. I'm going to use a bigger brush just because it's a bigger space. Also, paper towels are handy. And I'm just going to get some black. And I'm going to start far away from the sea star first so that I can tell how dark I'm putting it in. And as the black goes lighter, like if I add more water, the black turns to gray. Maybe I'll even add some green as we get closer to the sea star. I always like to do the background first because then I can decide how light or dark I want to make the animal that I'm painting. And with watercolor, you can always go darker, but it's really difficult to go lighter later. So if you go too light, that's totally okay. You can always put another layer over top. So I'm just kind of still using this green just so that it's not all one color. If I did all black, it would look almost like a nighttime sea star, which might be kind of cool, but I like more color. But you could always mix it up, use different types of green. And just filling in that background. Might even go back in with some black and just let it randomly move around. When you drop in colors to watercolor while it's still wet, it'll actually blend itself. All right. Now while that's drying, we can start on the sea star itself. So I'm going to use a lighter red. Just make sure my brush is really clean. And start in the center. So you can see those yellow lines really start to pop out. I may even start to add some shadows for where the sea star is casting a shadow. Since my background's still wet, I don't want to add more of the black paint because it'll actually, they call it, it'll bleed. So it'll start to expand and can make a big mess. So if you have time, at this stage you could wait for it to dry and go back in, or if you don't want to wait, crayon. So what I'm gonna do is I'm decided, I'm gonna have the light come in this direction. So I'm going to make it dark underneath the sea star's arms. So that it'll start to pop out a little bit. Yep, and it's wet. I have to use my left, I guess. Yeah, we can even go back in with some black crayon while the paper's wet. If your paper's too thin, be careful doing the crayon when the paper's wet, because sometimes it can poke through. Just add some more. Now I'm going to use some marker. And I'm just going to make little dots on the yellow lines that we did earlier so that it will kind of make the texture, the bumpy texture. I find the marker just makes a better circle. You can use crayon, but it tends to not want to make even dots. This part of the drawing is always super relaxing, so you just get absorbed into it and don't think about anything else except drawing dots. Alright, almost done with them dots. Alright, we can start doing some shadows on the sea star. Maybe I'll use the marker. Paper's still wet. So on each of the ends of the sea star, I'm just going to add a little bit of this red marker so that it will be lighter in the center of each of these. And that will kind of make it look a little more 3D instead of flat. That's why it's important in the beginning steps to not make your sea star super dark. Got a few dots. Can't forget those. And with the pen, you can even add some dots into the red sections too, just for a little more texture. All right, and there you have a sea star. You can continue to add more detail, more colors. You can also do markers on the background, just doing anything to make it yours. And there you are. There is a sea star in the Tidepools. Hope you have a lot of fun